CWL Miami is bringing to us not just CWL Pro Team action, but the top 16 that finish in the open bracket will be invited to World Championships. So let's break down who I think will finish in the top 16 and who might be a touch overrated in this episode. Welcome back, Call of Duty fans. Good to see you. IHOLDSHIFT back with you guys. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to see me on the open stream. I'm not going to get into details on all of that stuff, but I wasn't chosen to go. So, we'll be doing all the coverage like we normally do throughout Miami. Beyond that, I'm a big amateur scene guy. I love the Tier 2 AMs. Well, we need to figure out who exactly are going to be the favorites going in to possibly be a top 16 here at CWL Miami. So we'll be going through now. If you don't know information on these teams, you can go to COD Gamepedia, where they have lists of all of the rankings and seedings for some of these teams, most of which are going to be in my top 16. But there's also a bracket that you can follow along with that I'll also leave in one of the comments below in this video, so you can follow along and tune into the stream and catch to see exactly where certain teams are going. So let's dig into it. Now, I've classified these teams mostly based on where I think they'll finish, but it's not a hard set. These are my hardcore predictions. These are just defined top 16 teams, and I will be going through some of them a little bit more specifically as far as what you might be able to expect from them coming forward in Miami for the open bracket. First four up, Mindfreak, Quicker, not associated with an organization yet, Mazer Gaming, and Vodafone Giants. Now, this Mindfreak squad, first in Anaheim, first in London, second at Fort Worth, most of which were at the PLQ with the exception of Setzi, who played for Tainted Minds. It's hard to deny what this team's been able to do. Almost completely flawless until they got to the winners finals versus Mazer at Anaheim, where they finally would lose not only a map, but also the set. They would come back out of the losers bracket and be able to take Mazer into best of fives. Kind of a similar story to what they did at London. At Fort Worth, again, they still came out of the losers bracket, but weren't quite able to handle FC Black. So this Mindfreak squad has to be your favorites going forward. They look good enough to be taking sets off, if not full matches, completely off of some of the Pro League teams in the bottom 8. So this Mindfreak team, very, very strong. Quicker's team, he's going to be coming with himself, Shawnee, Bance, Nasty, and Shane. Now, the first three that I mentioned are very, very scary. Quicker, in specific, has some experience with Nasty. They both played on Fierce Esports, where they finished top 8. But beyond that, you really got to be looking out for Shawnee and Bance. Now, there's another player named Shawnee in the amateur scene. This is the Shawnee that was on Reciprocity. That still is on Reciprocity, technically. He's on their sub list. So he's going to be jumping in the mix with Bance from, of course, Red Reserve, which then became Denial, which then became Units. For the other two players, Nasty had a top 8 finish at Anaheim, like I mentioned, with Quicker, and then he had a top 24 finish at London. And for Chain, that name might sound a little familiar. He played on Fact Revolution back in the Pro League qualifier and had a top 12 finish at London under the Team Alliance. Mazer Gaming has a different roster than what they brought when they finished second at Anaheim. This is going to be a team that's actually completely new to Mazer Gaming, with Mosh, Apox, Spacely, Parzellian, and Jet Li. Of course, the big names here are Parzellian and Jet Li, as they have significant Pro League experience. Jet Li, most formally from Enigma 6, but before that, Accelerate. But before that, he played with Parzellian when they were on Midnight. Remember that team that went 7-2 in their first couple of weeks? Yeah, they're back. These two guys are going to be looking pretty nutty. And, of course, Parzellian on the UIU and mostly substitute roster will be joining the mix. Spacely finished 4th with the Scuff comeback season squad at Anaheim. Apox, we did not see him at Anaheim, but he had a top 6 finish at London with Reanimated, and then a top 6 finish at Fort Worth with In Control. He also might sound familiar because he was on Project 18 during the PLQ. And then, of course, Mosh, most formally with the Aspire squad that finished 3rd at London, top 6 at Anaheim. He was also on the FC Black squad back in the PLQ, a very dangerous squad. The Vodafone Giants are back with the same roster with one exception. Yako is no longer here, which seems like a hit until you realize that they've replaced him with Sukri from the Heretics. Big moves there. This Giants team has played together since Fort Worth, where they finished top 16 there. They improved to 4th at London and then 3rd at Anaheim. Exactly what you want to see from a squad. And honestly, you have to be feeling pretty saucy about what they might be able to bring here as well, because they've been looking really good. Our next 4 teams, again, these are in no particular order, but Sicario Gaming is in here with Tommy, Chino, Proto, Exceed, and Lenny. This is another very scary team, and we've seen them play a couple of times. If you watch the UMG 5v5 that happened, they did very well there, had a really good Game 5 versus Midnight Esports, the actual CWL Midnight Esports, and took them all the way, like I mentioned, to Game 5. Of course, Tommy from Reciprocity, Chino, you might remember him from the PLQ on G2 Esports, but was also picked up onto Enigma 6 for a hot second at Fort Worth. Proto, of course, UYU through and through, but placed 4th with Exceed on the Scuff Comeback Season squad. And then Lenny's the new addition, mostly I'm sure influenced from Tommy, as he's another EU player coming out of Fierce Esports from a top 8 finish, and they were also a top 12 finisher at London with Legion Nation. My next squad coming forward, what used to be the French squad, a little bit of a mix-up as far as the Western European nationalities and Train Hard Esport. Natche, Risk, and Zeke are the French players that are back once again. They played together when they were Overtime and then Denial. Natche is actually the only player, with Zeke actually, are the only 2 players that stay on this roster that were previously on Trade Hard. So Kreza and Risk and Yako are new. Yako, we talked about, he's from Giants, a 3rd place and 4th place finish for him. Kreza, we haven't heard a lot from this year, mostly because he's been stuck in the EU, but he was a top 24 finisher with a team called Vortex at London, and you might recognize his name because he was also in the PLQ under the team Divine. So this is another team with a lot of professional experience that you have to be thinking is going to be very, very scary. I've got Aspire up in this grouping as well. Same team that was back from Anaheim, with one exception. They brought in Super, who previously was playing with Sage, both at London and Anaheim. Again, this is a team that finished top 6 after their 3rd place finish at London, though. You had to be thinking that was a little bit of a disappointment. They were also a top 6 finisher at Fort Worth. That was before Tish got involved, and a lot of PLQ experience. Fastballer from Accelerate, Robbie B from Nation of Power, FC Black is represented by Tish, and Super played on Project 18. Next up, Team War. Got them sitting down here a little bit further below after their disappointing performance from Anaheim, where they only finished top 12. Again, this was mostly a team that was Team Kairos that finished 2nd at London. Josh, Dave, Defrag are back from that Team War squad, but they add in PD and Vortex. So essentially what this team is, when you leave out Vortex, this is Lightning Pandas. The only player not here is Mad Cat. That's the only player you're looking for that was a previous Lightning Pandas squad. So maybe a little bit of redemption here for Team War, as this Lightning Pandas squad had a lot of expectations after their Vegas performance and then fell short in the PLQ, decidedly short in the PLQ. Going to our next 4 teams, I've got Hybrid Gaming up here, and don't be surprised by this team because you haven't seen them in quite some time as far as their organization. It's Stamino with Spoof, Pander, Beezy, and Jintroid. 2 of those members from Sage, 2 of those members from Mazer, and Jintroid from Nemesis. Stamino and Beezy, of course, finishing 2nd at Anaheim. This team with Sage in the mix, though, Spoof, Pander, they've been playing together since they were at Fort Worth under the name of Cyclone. Also some PLQ experience here, of course, Spoof from UYU, Pander from the Pittsburgh Knights, and Beezy when he was playing with Accelerate Gaming, and then, of course, UYU afterwards. He's the only long-standing CWL player that we have in the mix. Jintroid is kind of the new guy in when he only played for Nemesis at Fort Worth and at Anaheim. Singularity, a team that a lot of people had eyes on at the beginning of the year because they were one of the notable EU organizations who had an awful Vegas. They have done very well in the open bracket previously, and for most of these players, they've represented Singularity not only at London, but also at Fort Worth in Detain, Insight, Bids, and Keza. Now, the only thing that's different here is that there was no Singularity mixed by this team. They were Fuego when they were at Anaheim, and that was Insight, Detain, and Keza. Bids was not able to make the journey. Kleenex is the new guy on the block. He's coming from what Legion Nation was able to put up at London, another top 12 finisher there. And of course, Team Divine represented in the PLQ from Keza and Bid. So again, a lot of players looking for redemption from not getting into the Pro League, now trying to get a shot to get to World Champs. Next up, In Control, a team that has not been represented by a lot of super great teams, but decent ones in the past. This one is their best chance, I think, at finishing top 16 with Knight, Cade, Infamous, Nova, and Holler. All over the place is where this team is mostly from. Knight has the most extensive experience in the CWL, having been the sub for Midnight and UYU. Also played on UYU during the PLQ. Cade, another redemption run for him as he was on Enigma 6 of the PLQ and then was dropped afterwards. He was playing for Sicario at Anaheim with a top 24 finish. Infamous, that is Kev Infamous, K Infamous, however you want to pronounce him. He was on X180 and top 16 finisher. Nova, also represented by Mazer Esports at Anaheim from the top 2 spot. And then Holler is the new addition kind of to the mix as he was representing Elite Esports for a top 16 finish at London and Anaheim. Definitely think this team can finish top 16. Then in my 12th spot, Sage Esports, a different roster than what you saw previously with Spooth, Panda, and the gang. This is going to be mostly what was X180 with Cells, Hollow, and Rex representing the team that finished top 16 at Anaheim, but a mix in with Vivid and Gravity, who are coming, well, Elite Esports is where Vivid is coming from. Gravity played with Elite and Helix back at London, but of course is most notable from his time with FC Black, not only at Fort Worth, but also in the PLQ. This is a team that has a lot of experience, and honestly, there should be a top 16 finish in this team's future. They have the experience to do so. I don't know what their bracket is going to look like, but they should be able to move through pretty quickly. And then my last 4 that I think will finish top 16, and afterwards I'll go over some other notable teams to keep an eye on. But here are my last 4. Movistar Riders with Puny, Sammy, Oni, Kacheru, and Supras. This was the original Movistar Riders squad that was at the PLQ. Supras was dropped from the team after the PLQ, where, again, Movistar Riders was able to finish top 16 at London and top 8 at Anaheim. Supras is coming back into the mix, but I still feel pretty good about this team after their performance at Anaheim against a very, very, very heavily stacked open bracket. I think they can definitely finish on their top 16 finish. In my next spot, Encrypted Gaming will be represented by Gunjar, Happy, TCM, Theory, and Fellow. And you hear Fellow and Gunjar and you think, hey, those are guys I know. They play at Fort Worth at Evil Geniuses. Yes. And for Fellow, he finished 4th with Scuff in the comeback season squad. However, Gunjar, Happy, TCM, and Theory have not played since Fort Worth on an open bracket team or a professional team. Happy played with Aspire, where they finished top 6 at Fort Worth, but no representation from these guys at London or Anaheim, with the exception of Fellow. In my next spot, RBL Esports. This was essentially what the Athame team was. They must have gotten a better offer because they've moved over to RBL Esports. This is T-Tiny, Oog, Nelson, Pemby from that Athame team. And in the mix this time will be Convicts from Nemesis. These guys looked very good, I think, throughout all of the bracket. They had a really rough bracket, to be completely candid, as they were going through the Anaheim bracket. So a top 16 finish for 4 of the 5. You figure they're probably going to do the same thing once again. And then I was timid to throw these guys up here, but Carnage Gaming, I really think have the wheels and the power to potentially finish top 16. Cherules and Pentagram are the only 2 players that played at Anaheim, but for Destiny, Noobs, and Vicious, they were actually initially the Mazer squad that finished top 12 at London, and most of them were also represented by Mazer at Fort Worth and the PLQ. For Cherules, X180, top 16. Pentagram, Mazer, top 2. Should be pretty solid. Definitely keep an eye out for these guys. It just comes down to what their bracket looks like. And then I want to note out 6 more teams out here. I'm not going to go through a lot of the history behind them, but I think they're going to have really tough brackets, which is why I'm not really putting them up in the mix for a top 16 finish, but they absolutely could. Vertex Gaming coming out of the OCE region. Zeppa, Restalling, Beaston, Fadi, and Nimble. This was a top 32 finishers. Very disappointing finish for Vertex Gaming, who were dropped very early on into the losers bracket and could not quite make the run. However, this squad did finish top 12 at Fort Worth the last time they traveled. At least 3 of the 5 did. The other 2, Zeppa and Nimble, who were from the Tainted Minds team, made up the initial Vertex squad, and they actually finished top 32. So not great, but a top 12 finish for Restalling, Beaston, and Fadi. Fury Gaming will be Teddy Rex, Drama, Ramby, Glow Frosty, and Demise. And by that roster, if you're familiar with the Tier 2 scene, you might be sitting there saying, this team sounds good. However, none of these guys have finished top 20, above top 24, with the exception of Glow Frosty, who had a top 16 finish at Anaheim with Sage and a top 6 finish at London with Sage. And technically, I guess Demise had a top 12 finish at Fort Worth under the name Forfeit. Nemesis, we're still waiting on a 5th player from them, but Hate, Kaiser, Juju, and Rain, they all represented Nemesis at Anaheim and a pretty solid finish there. Final Feature is a team that I think you might want to keep your eye on. I had a chance to cast these guys with the AGN, and they looked very, very good as far as how they were playing then. Will they be able to find a way to battle through this bracket? Only time will tell. Hyperboom, Trotty, Dave Patty, Onyx, Disarray, and Hitman. Not really much to say there besides the fact that Dave Patty and Onyx are kind of up-and-comers. Trotty as well. Hitman also plays in a lot of the CMG things. He's got a lot of experience. It just comes down to will they do well in the CWL variant. And then J4L also had a pretty solid finish at Anaheim. They'll be represented by Ethan, Equip, Attract, Herbie, and Mizuno. So definitely some players and teams to keep an eye on. I want to know what you guys think, though. Who did I miss? And who am I maybe undervaluing? Do you think someone else maybe has a shot to potentially break through Mindfreak's constant run? 2 in a row for them. They were actually mimicking essentially what 100 Thieves has done. They win at London, they win at Anaheim. They're trying to make their way to the World Champ stage, though. So it's going to be interesting to see. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing predictions on the play-in bracket. That should be up by the morning of Friday morning. Again, you will not see me at the open stream. However, On Sunday, I'm likely going to be doing a live stream of the games and doing analysis while it all happens in real time. I'm not going to be doing pausing and things like that, but I'm going to be trying to do some talkovers, and maybe we'll do a couple of watch parties as well. So if you're not already following me on Twitch, IHOLDSHIFT there. But more importantly, if you want to join in the conversation throughout the entire weekend, I'll have HQ completely set up to watch every single game. Make sure you join our Discord. You can find the link in the description below to join the conversation. Till next time, though, friends and family, hope you keep holding it down. Later, later. Bye-bye.